Good day, friends. Welcome to Bible Class Topics. Speaking of topics, if you don't use it, you lose it. Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30, a parable of Jesus. He just told the parable of the 10 virgins, and now he wants to tell the parable of the talents. Verse 14, Matthew 25. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents here. I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This parable had an immediate application for its first century listeners, and it continues to have a universal application for us today. While the previous parable concerning the 10 virgins stressed the need to be ready, this parable reminds us that watching and waiting is not a passive activity, but an active responsibility. The watchful servant is the one producing results that the master will see and approve on his arrival. What of these talents? What are they? Well, a talent is a weight. It's not a coin, and its value depends on whether the talent was made of gold, silver, or copper. In our own currency, the talents in question might be worth about $200 apiece. Well, do talents represent each of these individuals' ability? Because usually in our language, the word talent is an individual ability, being talented in music or talented in art or talented even in language arts or mathematics. But here, the talents do not represent the individual abilities. They cannot, because in the parable, each man's ability determines how many talents he would receive. Each was given all he could handle, to paraphrase A.T. Robertson. Therefore, the talents represent responsibilities and opportunities assigned by the master. If you have time, pause the video and go read verses 31 through 46 of this same chapter. It's apparent that the useless servant represents the scribes and the Pharisees back in the first century. In their own words, their purpose in life was to build a fence around the law and preserve it as it was forever. They were guilty of paralyzing religious truth. The word reckoneth in the King James Version clarifies that the money was to be used specifically for trading. The accrued profits were not an unexpected bonus, but an expected amount that the master was looking to see when he returned. Within God's parameters, religion, both individually and collectively, must continue to grow. If it does not continue to grow, it will die. But this parable reveals even more. First of all, God gives men differing gifts, different abilities. And our peculiar God-given ability is not what matters. What matters is how we determine to use it. Whatever abilities we do possess, God expects us to use them to their fullest. Men are not equal in talent. Men are not equal in abilities, but we must be equal in effort. Note that the first servant brought back 100% return. The second servant brought back 100% return. And the slothful servant, the lazy servant, brought back 0% return. The reward of work well done is still more work to do. The good and faithful servants receive more responsibilities, and they receive more work to do. The man that gets punished is the man who will not try. In this parable, the one-talent man did not lose his talent. He did not lose the master's money. He just did nothing with it. Instead of taking responsibility for his laziness, he turns around and tries to blame the master. What if he had risked it and lost it? It is everyone's responsibility to risk their gift for the common good. This parable teaches a universal truth. The one who exercises his ability will be progressively able to do more with it. If we do not use our ability, we lose it. The sure way to retain a gift from God is to use it for the Lord's work and service to our fellow man. Before we leave this parable, let's note the twofold punishment of the slothful servant. First of all, he lost what he had. What he had been given was taken back away and given to someone else who knew how to use it, the 5-talent man. And the slothful servant was cast into outer darkness, which of course represents the horrors of hell. Not only is he designated wicked and lazy, but he's also unprofitable, useless, and he's good for nothing. Let's talk about our ability. Let's talk about what we do with our ability. Well, having only one talent does not give us an excuse to bury that talent. Let's go to Revelation 3 and verse 8. So if we turn our Bibles there to Revelation 3 and verse 8, here John is relaying a letter written by Jesus Christ to the church at Philadelphia. Jesus says to this church, I know your works. Behold, I've set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Whether we possess little strength or great strength, we can all work for the Lord. Individually and collectively, we are responsible for using every opportunity that comes our way. Even when our abilities vary, all of us can do something. All Christians need to do what we can to teach the lost. Jesus said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Matthew 9:37 and 38. Paul told the young preacher Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:1 and 2, You then, my child, be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men. What will they do with it, Paul? They will be able to teach others also. Beyond our weekly contribution at our local congregation, some of us have the financial ability to support other gospel preachers. The Philippians were able, as a congregation, to support Paul in his work as he traveled about Asia Minor and Europe. In Philippians 1:3-5, I thank my God in all my remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine, for you all making my prayer with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And then as he closes the letter in chapter 4, verse 17, not that I seek the gift, he says, but I seek the fruit that increases to your credit. Others may have opportunity and ability to extend hospitality. In his first letter, Peter said this, above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. Chapter 4, verse 8 and 9. The Hebrew writer said in Hebrews 13:1 and 2, let brotherly love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. I draw your attention to John's epistles. His second epistle and his third epistle, both very short. Neither one takes up a page in your Bible, but these are textbooks on how hospitality should be given and how those who refuse hospitality are condemned. But let's talk about Lydia in Acts 16. She and her household are converted to Jesus Christ. Paul preached to them on the banks of the river. And after she was baptized, and her household as well, she urged us, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. And she prevailed upon us. Lydia had only been a Christian for less than a day, and already she is exhibiting what we can call Christian hospitality. All Christians must do what they can to minister to the needy. Paul told the Romans in chapter 12, verse 13, contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. And then let's talk about the situation with Tabitha, also called Dorcas. She had passed away. Peter showed up and resurrected her from the dead. I'm talking about Acts chapter 9, verses 36 and 39. Let's see what we can find out about Tabitha. Now there was in Joppa a disciple named Tabitha. She was full of good works and acts of charity. So Peter rose and went with them, and when he arrived, they took him to the upper room. All the widows stood beside him weeping and showing tunics and other garments that Dorcas, that is Tabitha, made while she was with them. Paul wrote to the Galatians. It's not a happy letter. It's one of Paul's roughest letters that he ever wrote. But in chapter 6, verse 10, as he's closing that letter, he says, so then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Christians must teach the lost. We must support the preaching of the gospel. We must be hospitable. We must administer to the needy. Abilities used will increase. Abilities unused will diminish. In other words, You lose it if you don't use it. I'll put a link in the description below to our video that covers all of Matthew 25. You might want to take some time and go watch that video. I will mention that comments on verses 14 through 30 begin at the 6:48 mark of that video. I was motivated to share these thoughts while reading Robert Harkrider's comments concerning what Jesus had to say to the church at Philadelphia in Revelation 3:8. And in the comments below, or I should say in the description below, I will give you that reference. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope this discussion of the parable of the talents and how the church at Philadelphia used their little bit of strength to do all they could for the Lord will help encourage you to take whatever strength you have and apply it to the work of the Lord. Let's keep each other in our prayers till we meet again, hopefully in the next few days here on Bible Class Topics. May God bless.